This is decided by other men, relatives in the family. If a man behaves very rudely, then the father can protect his daughter from him by having a talk with him. In ancient culture, this was resolved with the help of an extended family. If there is violence in a small family, then the extended family forbids this, simply threatens, and so on. That means that men should do this. If you don't have any men around you, then you should do this with the help of the authorities. That means that some masculine force must be applied to the person, because a man doesn't listen to a woman, he can only listen to men.
There were times when I called the police, but it didn't change anything.
Maybe you have some male friends? You see, the root of the problem is permissiveness. If you allowed someone to abuse you for some time, then the man gradually gets used to it. The possession of a woman in and of itself is something that has always existed in our lives. Everyone wants to possess the female body, starting with the woman herself and ending with children and men. You see, the female body is a source of pleasure in this world, and possessing the female body is what people are engaged in. It is precisely for this reason that a person enters the mother's womb, because they're drawn to the female body. Sometimes this possession becomes so selfish that a person begins to abuse the woman. You need to use force with this person. You need to sober him up. The best way, as you said, is to live separately. Force him to leave or leave yourself.
The thing is, we have nowhere to go. The situation is such right now.
I understand. But I'm telling you the best way. I had exactly the same situation in my family. My father beat my mother, and I went to the police when I was 15 years old and got punched in the gut by him. You see, I understand everything you're saying, but I, as a man, a young man, forced my mother to take the right steps to make him come to his senses.
He has paid for the apartment so far, and I don't know which direction to move in.
Discipline him. Look, this is your fate. You always need to understand what's happening first. The first thing a person understands is that they were unlucky. If I had simply seen you in the audience, I would have also seen that you are destined to have exactly this kind of person who would commit violence against you. It's already written all over you. You see, you are attracted to exactly these types of people and so on.
Can I change this?
Huh?
Can I change this?
To do this, you must first understand that this is your fate. When you understand this, then you stop considering the person an enemy and separate his behavior from him as a person. From this moment on, you can wish him happiness, forgive him, but at the same time, behave strictly with him. And when love flows from you toward him, love means pure perception of the person. When love flows from you toward him, not a desire to take revenge, to use force, to defend yourself, but rather taking a strong position. From that moment on, he will start to change.
And now he started talking about divorce. I breathed a sigh of relief at first.
But that's the other extreme. You see, you're not saving the situation. You want to live with this person. This is obvious. You depend on him, you want him to be near you, but he is using this dependency of yours incorrectly. He starts to abuse it, right? But here it's also important to understand. There are two reasons why a man beats a woman or abuses her. Two reasons. The first reason is when a woman rebels against a man very strongly. She rebels in her heart. The man becomes enraged and beats her. And this reason cannot be treated at all. The woman simply must learn to behave correctly with the man, and that's it. This cannot be treated in any way. And the second reason is permissiveness. When a woman is weak-willed, she cannot behave correctly with her husband. Which of these reasons is the main one for you?
Probably the first one.
If it's the first reason, then he's not at fault before you at all.
At first, it was probably connivance and then rebellion.
Look, I'll explain now. If a woman doesn't yield in an argument, behaves very harshly and rigidly and flexibly, then a man simply becomes enraged by this. Any man, or he breaks down. One of the two. Either becomes enraged or breaks down. Understand?
Yes, I understand.
Well, that means everything is fine. Just analyze it yourself. I'm saying that when a woman behaves very rebelliously, she creates this situation herself. The man is not at all to blame for beating her. It happens automatically with him. He can't understand what happens at all. She simply drives him to that state, and that's all.
I understand.
You simply need to understand that any situation is always resolved through spiritual life. We just conducted an analysis, but it doesn't solve anything. If you want something to change, then you need to go through several stages with the help of prayer, which we will describe in the lecture. When you go through them, then you will be able to change the situation. And now you've simply understood it better, that's all. I can't talk with you anymore. This would be selfish of you because there are other people who need answers to their questions just as much. Questions from others. You see? I treated you the same way you treat your husband. You see, I behaved very strictly, right? Think about why this happened, and then you will find the answer to the question of why he behaves this way toward you. Do we have questions from someone else? Go ahead, the girl in red. I'm listening.
Thank you so much for your knowledge and for how it changed my life. I'm very nervous because this is my first time at your lecture. Well, I have a difficult family situation, a divorce. This is my second marriage. I left my first husband. I've been with my second husband for 16 years now, and the relationship hasn't worked out from the very beginning. I have been listening to your lectures for about 3 years and trying to work on myself. And so I heard a lecture that took place in January of last year. And I tried to pray like that. But sometimes it seemed to me that it was working, and I already wanted to create bright and pure memories. It seemed to me that it was working. But then, when communication with him would start, I would lose my temper again.
Nothing terrible. You slipped up, no big deal.
I reached a state where I didn't want to continue living like this anymore. I'm just tired of it.
You know why? Because you want happiness from him. The desire for happiness from a close person is precisely the trap that creates quarrels. Until a person is able to make themselves happy through prayer and helping other people, they cannot be happy in their personal life. It's impossible. Because a close person still won't be able to satisfy all our desires for happiness. This is impossible because he has a limited ability to give you happiness, limited by his capabilities. And the spectrum of happiness for a person can be completely different. In a woman, it can be broader than the husband's capabilities. And when some part of happiness is not satisfied, then irritability, anger, despair, and resentment come into force. In other words, this will always happen again and again when you find a person because you need to learn to live caring for others, not selfishly.
But the fact that I worked on myself, does it have any effect?
Tremendous impact. You have defeated 40% of your fate, at least in your relationship with your husband. The fact that you worked on yourself greatly influenced your fate. But at the same time, you haven't overcome your desire to live selfishly. It is the hardest to overcome. Do you want to divorce this person now?
Well, he wants to.
Don't let this happen.
Because he says that I'm in a sect.
In a sect? Well, then don't be in a sect. If a person doesn't understand something, especially in spiritual life, treat them like a child. In this case, you deceive a child, and you can also deceive a person in the same way. You just need to tell him, come on, it's all nonsense, don't worry. It's just a woman's hobby. Today it's one thing, tomorrow it's another. Don't pay attention to it. If you say it like that, it will be the truth.
I don't know. It's gone too far.
It doesn't matter. Simply conduct yourself with your close one in such a way that he calms down about this matter, but at the same time allows you the opportunity to engage in spiritual practice. That's your choice then. That means that you are abandoning your loved one because of your faith. And this means fanaticism. Because whenever a person has enough love, they can unite their personal life with their spiritual life. When this love is not enough, a person destroys their life. The energy of love brings everything together.
That means that I need to keep praying?
You need to keep praying and reassure your close one that you're not seriously involved in this, that there's no sect, it's just child's play. Do you live together?
Yes. And he sees this, that means that this is not the case.
You must neutralize this with your love and compliance. Cry, ask, please allow me to. The problem is not in your faith, but in your attitude. He sees a zone of your independence there, and you should make your faith dependent on him. Ask him for permission to do this, and so on. Behave like a woman.
Everything is clear so far.
You don't understand anything. Right now, just now, you have uncovered the main reason for your loneliness. It's independence. You are an independent person, you don't want to be a woman, and therefore you end up alone as a result. That's the whole reason. Faith has absolutely nothing to do with it. A man doesn't allow a woman to have faith because he sees a zone of independence there, and he tries to protect her from that zone. That's it. Interestingly, I've noticed that when the governments of two countries quarrel, ordinary people love each other even more. I have never experienced such warmth towards myself as I do now. So many flowers, all kinds of gifts. This has never happened before. We must be above enmity. We must be above enmity, but when necessary, defend our homeland. It is not a sin to defend your homeland, but one must be above enmity. In ancient culture, even when people fought, they learned to love each other. If their life unfolded in such a way that they had to fight for their country, they still tried to be above enmity. Hostility destroys this world. Yes?
Dr. Torsunov, tell me please, how can one learn to fulfill one's duties out of love? I don't know how to perform them.
Love is the greatest deficit in this world. Most people don't even understand at all what love is. Because love has nothing to do with my desire to enjoy a close person. Love is a mirror reflection of holiness and purity. A person has no holiness and purity inside because they are woven from the desire to live, which means from the desire of egoism. One needs to survive, eat, breathe. These are all egoistic desires. But when a person focuses their consciousness on those individuals who have dedicated their lives to God, such a person undoubtedly begins to feel selflessness and true love. In their heart, finally, the possibility emerges to see for the first time in their life the eyes of their loved one. Because most men see women as just a beautiful body. And most women see in men opportunities to fulfill their desires. But when a person focuses on holiness, on purity, they sober up and begin to see the person in their loved one. From this moment, love begins. I also need to see people in you, not just listeners of my lectures. From that moment on, the lecture will begin. For this to happen, the Lord needs to be in my heart. If I have myself in my heart, I will be bringing myself to you. Then there will be no lecture, no relationship, and no love. Love begins when I set myself up for something higher during the lecture. Thank you for your question. Let's give it to the young lady after all. She's already feeling sad, thinking that I don't love her. I've already passed her over twice. And then your question.
Thank you very much. I don't think at all that you don't love me. I want to thank you for coming. On behalf of everyone in the hall, thank you very much.
I want to tell you something. When I was giving my last lecture in St. Petersburg yesterday evening, after the lecture, a woman came up to me and said, "On behalf of everyone present, I want to wish the Ukrainians happiness, love, and prosperity." I was surprised that she said that because I had been waiting for those words for a long time. I wanted them to be spoken.
We are grateful to this woman, truly. I would like to share my experience based on your lectures, particularly regarding the use of prayer in the sphere of personal relationships. To share a little bit. A little over 2 years ago, I started performing puja for personal relationships, which unfortunately I was unable to create.
Well, that means that you established such a contact with the altar that was aimed at overcoming your personal difficulties. It's just that not everyone understands what puja is.
6 months after I started doing this, a colleague at work introduced me to her friend, with whom we developed a mutual attraction, and our relationship with him lasted a year.
Your relationship didn't last a year. It was infatuation that lasted. The relationship hadn't started yet at that time. Relationships require efforts. They are not just about enjoyment.
Well, our story lasted a year. The first 6 months I was very happy, and practically every day I thanked God for sending this person for our relationship.
That's right.
The second 6 months were not so rosy for me anymore. And at that moment, while continuing to do puja, I started to pray. I turned to the saints with a request for help. As a result of these prayers, so to speak, we broke up. He was the one who initiated the breakup. Well, the initiative came from his side. He became cold toward me in his attitude.
Well, that means that you stopped enjoying each other?
But it's hard for me to say it like that. It's just that I still feel the same way about him. I'm grateful to him for being in my life. I sincerely wish him happiness, even now at this moment. By no accidental coincidence, I've already seen him with another girl twice. And right now, at this moment, I truly wish him happiness and continue to pray and turn to the saints with a request to help me let him go.
It's impossible to let go of anyone or accept anyone. Relationships are given to a person so that they can purify them. When you begin to relate to this person in a very bright and pure way, at that moment you will find peace in relation to him, because it's only your resentment that holds you. This is not love, it's called dependency and resentment, and it's holding you back. Resentment goes away when a person feels the purity of another person, their dependence on God and on events, on fate. When a person feels the purity of another person, they also feel whether this is their person in life or not. Because there is purity that brings people together, and there is purity that separates them. Right now I can sense his purity for you, and I see that it differs from yours. You are different, that's why you parted ways.
That's how God willed it.
But you must feel this, and then you will calm down. You must feel what this relationship was created for. Relationships between people arise with the purpose of feeling the purity in a person, not to enjoy them. 6 months was enough for you to stop enjoying each other. After that, life should have begun. And life means taking care of the person.
Mutual care of each other.
No, not mutual. This word mutual is precisely the root of evil. First comes care, then comes love. You see? This is the root of evil, mutual. No, not mutual, but care on your part. And it should be humble care. You humbly take care of him. He doesn't understand this, but you continue to care for him. And God rejoices in your heart and cleanses his heart. And then gratitude appears in his heart. From this moment, the family begins. A drop of gratitude in his heart and family begins. Family life begins. Someone always goes first, someone second. Some people have enough intelligence to humble themselves and take care of their close person. And some people have enough intelligence to understand the nobility of their close person. And that's how a family is created. And if someone lacks the intelligence for one of the two, then a family is not created. Well, thank God. Why create a family with a foolish person?
I basically understood what you're talking about.
No, you didn't understand. You simply sensed this hint. To understand, you need to enter this situation again and pass the test. Understanding always means work, not just mental activity.
How can I understand this?
Very simple. You should now pray to God so that he reveals to you the spiritual purity of this person. And when you feel his spiritual purity, from that moment your relationship will become calm because you will pass the test and you can move forward. This is your sacrifice. You weren't able to make it right away. You'll have to make this sacrifice anyway, otherwise you'll remain alone.
So it was a life lesson through this person?
God always gives us life lessons through people. There are no other ways. And this applies to everyone in the audience. This doesn't apply only to this girl. In order to start living with someone, you must first humble yourself. But this does not mean violence against oneself. This humbling only appears to be humiliation on the outside. In reality, when a person is spiritually oriented, that means that they want pure relationships, a pure life. Then in this case, they act contrary to expectations, contrary to how one should normally act. For example, if a close person behaves badly, you may think you should fight with them. But if I, for example, conduct myself nobly, forgive, and try to show them my purity, then this does not humiliate a person. It increases their true dignity. Because a person has two kinds of dignity. One dignity makes them quarrel and increases false dignity. And the other dignity is when a person behaves correctly due to prayer and forgiveness, and they also become worthy in the process. But this dignity is victorious, it is true, but outwardly it looks like weakness, while inside it is strength. But then, when a person sees that their close one acts this way and is not humiliated by it, they begin to doubt how well they actually understand this person. Maybe they're much better than I think of them. This is how respect appears in the heart. When people simply enjoy each other, when a man hugs a woman, kisses her, at that moment he stops respecting her. She becomes an object of pleasure for him. And at this time, he does all his courting only with the goal of seducing her, and that's it. He has no other goal. If she doesn't give in, he simply dumps her. There is no love in this, and there is no respect in this either. Although it may seem that way. But the energy of love is present in this relationship. Still, when people are together, it means there is harmony between them. It is expressed through enjoyment at first. People enjoy each other, but this enjoyment also becomes the cause of their suffering. Because when your loved one stops bringing you pleasure, at that moment you will start getting angry at them. But if this pleasure becomes the foundation for living together, for attraction, for that minimal attraction that is needed for a person to stay close, then everything is fine. It should not be used to enjoy each other. It should be used to keep the person close. And for love to be created, to arise, one needs to seek purity in a person and take care of them. Moreover, to take care by forcing oneself. Because a woman has no desire whatsoever to care for a man. She wants him to care for her. That's why she got married. This is what a woman's love is made of. This is a good thing. A woman's love is great. A man in love must also be selfless. This is his work in the relationship. But if a woman tells him about this, then love will end. Because a man must, of his own free will, start doing this someday or not start at all. And then the woman should start doing what he needs in life. Someone has to start, you see? But a woman's love has a selfish nature, and that's normal at first. At first it's selfish. This is what our life consists of. In other words, you need to care for your close one like this. Take care of your wife so that she is cheerful and beautiful. And this is difficult, but this is our life. We will gradually move through our lectures along our thread of life. Today we are talking about what fate is and how time acts in a person's consciousness. I'll start by talking a little bit about consciousness. I think most of you have already heard about this in my lectures, but nevertheless, we still need to talk about it because it's important to remember, deeply feel, and understand it once again. There are 3 levels of human life. The first level, in which a person's attitude is very selfish. A person feels life only from the position of their physical body. A person believes that they are these muscles, these bones, this head. Well, that means that I am Dr. Torsunov. That means that this body is me. When a person thinks this way, they have a certain style and type of behavior. The first thing one believes is that the body will definitely die. Although there were attempts in various ancient cultures to somehow make the body resurrect someday, well, that means that it's the soul that is resurrected, you see, and not the body. But when a person considers oneself to be the body, then one understands that it will die. So how should life be lived? Have fun. So drink, party, have fun, because we only live once. This is the first conclusion from the fact that I am a body. Second conclusion, what should we use to treat ourselves? What affects the body is chemistry. The diet consists of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and calories. That means understanding food as chemically based substances. Next, what is a relationship? Relationships are the interaction of bodies, and therefore sex becomes the center of life as the main object of interaction. Everything else is just fiction. Love also means that we're good in bed together. And if we're bad in bed, it means we're incompatible, we don't love each other, we need to break up. This is a material understanding of life or material thinking. It arises solely from the fact that egoism, or this mental structure of a person called egoism, very strongly permeates the psyche. The stronger the egoism permeates a person's psyche, and psyche means the subtle energy body, the subtle invisible structure. We also have a subtle energy body, you see? There is a spiritual body. These are 3 concepts of life. I will tell you about them now. The first concept of life, when a person perceives themselves as a physical body, is called ignorant existence. When people have this mindset, they behave very selfishly, because that's how the very structure of this understanding of happiness is designed. If I am the body, if you don't satisfy me, then I'll leave you, because I need to be happy. You see? This philosophy is based on a very material, selfish, degraded, impure, dirty, superficial perception of this world. Conscience is absent in such a perception. A person becomes shameless. Why? Because one perceives the world in a very materialistic way. A person needs to please their body. And if my wife doesn't satisfy my body and I cheat with another woman, what's wrong with that? If I'm happy, she should be happy for me. That's the philosophy. Raise your hand if you've encountered this philosophy in people close to you. This is terrible. When a person encounters such a philosophy, it means that there is no life in such a relationship. It is very difficult to live with a person who is on such a platform of consciousness. People with such a platform of consciousness are usually not too clean in their affairs either. They can deceive another person, they can engage in some criminal activities and so on. That means that it's quite a harsh lifestyle. The concept of love here is very illusory because such a person perceives love as a purely physical thing. For them, anything purer and more sublime is something vague and unnecessary in life. Perhaps you didn't understand what I'm talking about right now. You will understand later by comparison because I will now describe 3 concepts to you, and they will all be connected with degradation, passion, and pure goodness. Is it clear? The second concept of life means to feel oneself as the subtle energy body. That means that when a person feels themselves as the psyche, as the subtle body, then the person is not satisfied only with what the physical body provides. But the body provides bodily happiness. That means food. One needs to enjoy food. One needs to enjoy sex. One needs to enjoy comfort and self-defense, protection of one's life. That means having good conditions in life. This is a purely material understanding of happiness. But when a person reaches such a solid, classical, subtle concept of happiness, then they desire power. Because power has nothing to do with the body. No matter what your body is like, if you have power, you will be respected regardless. No matter what you look like. The body no longer matters when a person has power, right? Everyone loves a person who has power. Money has a subtle nature. When a person has a lot of money, the body takes second place. Everyone respects them as someone who has money. Behavior has a subtle nature. A person can have an unattractive physical body, but behave very delicately, behave properly in society. And so look, money, power, and behavior characterize people in passion. When a person strongly desires money, strongly desires power, and learns proper behavior, they thus emerge from crude egoism and begin to live from the position of subtle egoism. People who are on the platform of subtle egoism play at having good relationships, since they are not on the true platform, because I am actually neither the subtle nor the physical body. I am a soul by nature. And the soul means that a person must be honest, sincere, humble, compassionate, kind. These are the qualities of the soul. Qualities of the soul. The soul is not connected to any religion or any nation, but at the same time it can serve religion and nation. The soul itself chooses whom it will serve. Today it serves one religion, one nation, tomorrow another, but at the same time it understands that it stands above all of this. Then this soul has love for everything around it. And if a person identifies themselves with something very strongly, then love turns into hatred. Okay, this is very difficult to understand right away. Let's move on. Look, I'm not against nations, religions, and countries. Try to understand. I'm talking about deeper things now. We will return to this a little later. Look, when a person is on the subtle platform of happiness, they are also an egoist by nature. They want to live for themselves, but they want to live for themselves honestly, without offending anyone. A person tries to behave delicately and shows through their behavior that if you are with them, you will be well off. If a person has money, they try to help other people close to them with that money. That means that such a person is already different from people who think only about themselves, and if you don't want to be with them, then get lost. This is still a platform of degradation, even with money. You see, such a person is tactful, behaves correctly, but at the same time doesn't see the other person. One sees in other people only one's own desires. And on this basis, a crack appears sooner or later. Because when a person lives in passion or lives with a personal desire for happiness, but in a more delicate way toward others, based on laws, on rules of life, on etiquette, when a person lives like this, another person still exists for them only within the framework of their own personal happiness. Well, let's say this person lives only on the wave of success. If a person in degradation doesn't understand at all what normal life is, one simply torments everyone, including oneself, and pretends that everything is great. A passionate person can truly be happy, but only when riding the wave of life, so to speak. And therefore all movies in passion always show life on the wave. Of course, first under the wave in order to catch the wave. Of course, at first I'm walking around with a log, everyone around me is hurting me. Then I shoot everyone and become cool. It means I caught the wave. At the same time, it's impossible to hit me, no matter how much you shoot. Because life in passion always means only one thing, that I am a winner, I am not a loser. When people come together in degradation, they come together simply on the platform of mutual attraction and sex. Their happy life continues as long as they like each other. And this lasts 3 years at most. This is the maximum. This girl said that for her it lasted 6 months. Well, on average 6 months, sometimes longer. Who has had mutual attraction last longer than 3 years? Sometimes it happens. You'd better not raise your hand or people will be jealous. It's already passed anyway. It's clear that everything passes in this world. Old age comes anyway. So people in passion have happiness in life, but only when riding the wave of fate. And therefore the entire philosophy of life in passion means only the explanation that you can always be on the wave. And this explanation is a false philosophy because this life is arranged in such a way that sometimes a person is on the wave and sometimes under the wave. Sometimes a country experiences a rise in its development and sometimes a decline. And if you analyze it from the position of degradation, then you need to leave this country. If from the position of passion, then everything will be fine. And if from the position of pure goodness, that means real life, then precisely the time when there are difficulties in the country, precisely this time is the main one in the development of personality. Because the most important thing in personal development is always the time when a person is going through difficulties, not when things are easy. Because when things are easy for a person, they always just relax. Therefore, Ukraine is now at the peak of its development, and this development has an internal nature. Before a fruit is born, it is invisible, it develops inside. Right now, the spirituality of this country is developing, purity is maturing within it, and then it will develop externally as well. You see what I'm talking about? When spirituality develops, life is always very difficult. But people come to their senses as a result of this. In the second concept of life, what does a person look like? How do they behave? What do they eat? What are their interests? A person who has a refined perception of the world enjoys art and culture. One eats delicious food of various flavors. One likes delicacies. A person tries to behave in a very cultured manner. One has a romantic perception of family life. That means that one needs very bright, joyful relationships on the shores of Rio de Janeiro. Something very joyful, the peak of the wave, so to speak. And one strives for this to come someday. When friends come to visit such a person, they dress themselves up, dress up their spouse, and they show this peak of the wave to their friends. They try to show them that this is exactly how everything is in their life. That means that when a person lives in passion, they play at love, play at culture, play at being themselves, and in doing so forget themselves, because they need to show success. If there is no success, then there is no life, because any concept of life is always based on faith. If a person believes in the body, they need to pump up the body. The body must be cool. You see? And then everything in their life is great. And if a person believes in the psyche, then they must be a strong personality in terms of power, money, business, and activity. People in degradation achieve success simply by force, by brute force. They simply seize their fate. People in passion achieve everything through hard work. People in pure goodness achieve happiness through relationships and love. What distinguishes life in pure goodness? What is a person in pure goodness? A person in pure goodness is one who believes that the truth in a person is above all else, in any person. Every person has kindness in their heart. Every person has purity in their heart. Every person has love in their heart. These are inherent qualities of the soul. The soul has 26 petals. These are determination, firmness, humility, compassion, purity, kindness, purposefulness, truthfulness, and so on. These are the qualities of the soul. Everyone has them. It's just that one person is closer to understanding themselves as a soul, while another is further from this understanding. One person has enough knowledge about what true happiness is, while another doesn't. That's the whole difference. There are no bad and good people. There are simply developed and less developed or underdeveloped people. A family in passion cannot live long because people cannot keep up appearances in front of each other for long. The time comes when they see that their close person has some kind of secret life that they don't know about. He secretly looks at other girls and maybe he's even already communicating with them. Or my wife has some friends that I don't know about. Because a person in passion cannot help but have this secret life because they need success, and in their relationship with their wife, they won't always be on the wave. When the wave ends with one's wife, the wave must begin somewhere else. Otherwise, there is no life for a person in passion. They always need to have success. One should be happy. One lives for happiness, for one's own happiness. If there's no happiness with your wife, then you need to find a mistress. This is the philosophy. This philosophy exists in passion. Psychologists say, no happiness with your wife? Find yourself a mistress. Why suffer? Be happy. And the wife will be happy. If it's easier for you, it will be easier for her too. They don't understand that beyond this external success, there is also conscience. When a wife sees that you've become somehow different and that you have someone else, her conscience torments her. She feels suffering from this in her heart because there is something higher than simply feeling good. There is something in life that is higher than this feeling. So the third concept of life, the spiritual concept, this is what we should strive for. It's not like you're suddenly on a spiritual platform while your husband is not. This is not the case. The spiritual platform means that a person is capable of seeing another person, their purity, their depth. As one song says, I look at you as in a mirror, as at my own reflection. One must learn to fill oneself with this purity. When a person begins to study themselves as a soul, they discover several specific patterns. The first pattern, I cannot be pure and elevated on my own. I definitely need to get this from somewhere. The first pattern is that the soul is dependent by its nature. When a person begins to feel themselves as a soul, they also begin to see their dependence on their country, on their faith, on ideology. I am dependent on everything that surrounds me. And this is good. This is not bad. But most of all, one must depend on God in life. For example, if you live in a country and want to be independent from it, will you bring happiness to that country or not? Of course not. You will destroy it. I don't like this government. Overthrow it. Okay. Overthrown. Again, they don't like this new one, so they overthrow it once more, and so on indefinitely. But if a person at some point stops this behavior and simply says, we will live with the government that we have, this means living in pure goodness. From this moment, development begins. The same thing must be said. I will live with the husband I have, and with the children I have, and with the math teacher I have, and with those products that are sold in the store, and with the job that I have. The word happiness means living in the present moment. Therefore, existing in the present means acceptance. Time is the main force that pushes the soul out of self-awareness. I am a soul. But when I experience pain, at that moment this pain forces me to leave the present for the past, which means to grieve. Grief arises in a person's life. One goes into the past. A person escapes into the past from pain. One thinks people used to live better than we do now. Thoughts about the past mean degradation, degraded existence. Or about the future. When a person eventually faces hardship, one thinks, the time will come and we will be happy, and starts thinking about it when that time will come. But at the same time, one doesn't live in the present, because living in the present means accepting what exists right now as the very best for my fate, the very best right now. When a country is bathed in happiness, a person doesn't need to accept anything because they are already living in the present. They already feel good. You don't need to accept anything. But when a person experiences suffering, that's when they get pushed into the past and future. And it is precisely at this time that the soul develops. It is precisely at this time when suffering comes that a person becomes more aware, understands themselves better as a person, and develops more in life. And this development can extend beyond the boundaries of this life. Believe me, we don't have these boundaries. These boundaries simply mean the restrictedness of a person's education, of their perception of themselves as an individual. This life will definitely end and the next one will come. And you will say, but I don't know myself there in that next life. I don't remember. How can I think about it now? It's just a limitation. I'm telling you this because I study it through the example of my own life. I will tell you about events that occurred in my life as a result of prayer about 2 weeks ago. I was sleeping at night and had a prolonged dream in which there were specific real events from my life. How many of you have recalled events from your life in a dream? At that moment, do you have any doubts whether this is your life or not? No, you know for sure that all of these are events from my life. I saw these events for several hours, experienced them, thought about them. And then suddenly I realized that these events did not happen in this life. I frantically began to recall myself from childhood to the present day and realized that these events did not happen in this life. But these are events from my life. Who has experienced this? Raise your hands. You see, I'm not the only one like this. Well, the psychiatrists present in the audience will say, well, that's understandable. Well, you can perceive it that way. I don't mind. So when I realized that this was my life, but not this one, I also asked my conscience here in my heart. And I also wanted to see the future. I saw myself in a future life. Not in detail, but I simply saw some huge buildings with some platforms for some kind of flying vehicles. I saw that this would be in about 200 years. I saw that people would be eating artificial food and there would be almost no nature left. When I started looking at all of this, I then said to myself, I don't want this, I don't need such a life. Then the next day, when I began to pray, I started to activate the memory of my future life at the moment when I was inspired by prayer. And at that moment I saw that this memory of the next life or contact with it began to fade away. In other words, a brighter future began to emerge in my fate than the one I am destined for now. In other words, a person's life can shift to a different layer, to a different space. Even right now, right here on this earth, right in this body. In my childhood, I lived on the 9th floor, and one of my friends lived on the 5th. And he was such a nice, intelligent boy. I was always drawn to him. He was a year younger than me. We often spent time together and played. But then, when I met him at around 40 years old, I saw before me a degraded person with an old face, a drunkard. And he said, "Do you remember me? We used to play together." I was shocked because I saw a different layer of life. I saw a person who lives in a different layer of life, who lives a different life, a different fate. I could never have imagined that the person I was friends with could sink so low. Keep in mind that you can rise so much in your life right now that what you currently perceive as normal life will be perceived as horrible when you look from the position of knowledge. And the layer of your life will also be different. You will communicate with very dignified people who will have more conscience in life, more purity, who is already experiencing this now in your life. This means you've already started on this path. Because people who lack knowledge, they degrade. That means that they lose happiness in life. People in passion remain in the status quo. They're afraid to change anything this way or that. They're afraid. And people in pure goodness change their lives. In pure goodness, these are those who try to see themselves as a soul. When a person sees themselves as a soul, they bless their food and prepare it with prayer. It is pure food that contains more spirituality. For such a person, the relationship with their spouse is based on conscience, not on sex or mutual attraction. This is a relationship that has purity and depth. For such a person in pure goodness, friends are those who sincerely want to help each other, and not those with whom we are friends simply because we have the same job, the same desires, the same leisure activities, or the same interest in life. For a person in pure goodness, love means care, not enjoyment. For a person in pure goodness, life means enlightenment and knowledge, not acquisition, as it does for a person in passion. For a person in pure goodness, victory happens in the heart, not in the external environment. For a person in pure goodness, there are no obstacles in life because they overcome them with the help of knowledge, which is also born in their heart. A person in pure goodness knows that they can see their happiness before it arises. A person in passion cannot believe this because for them it is superstition. A person in pure goodness can sense betrayal and infidelity. A person in passion can only find this out. A person living in pure goodness can get rid of betrayal through prayer. And a passionate person can only do so through threats, violence, or some kind of admonishment. That means through some subtle influence on a person, laws and so on. Therefore, people in pure goodness live in a different layer of life, which is purer, brighter, and more sublime. It is in this layer that personal life issues are resolved because people in passion cannot preserve their family. The family undoubtedly falls apart for those who want success in relationships. Those who want personal happiness and success in relationships will never preserve their family. Because a family is preserved when a person performs a heartfelt feat for the sake of their loved one in their life. That's when it is preserved. And this is no longer just a successful life. This is a life in which a person includes their relationship with holiness and with God. The question immediately arises, in which faith? In your faith. In your faith. without changing anything in your faith. I can repeat it 50 times so that you have no doubts. Doubts always arise. Therefore, a person has 3 bodies. There is a physical body which consists of the nervous system, muscles, organs, and so on. This physical body depends on the work of the subtle energy body. The subtle energy body supplies every cell of our body with the energy of happiness. This energy of happiness is prana, the energy of prana, which is needed for life. Or as they say, life force. Life force is nothing other than the desire for happiness. A person cannot live without happiness because without happiness it is impossible to exist at all. Happiness at the level of the body means delicious food. Happiness at the level of relationships means a loved one, beloved children. Happiness at the level of activity means having a job you love. Happiness at the level of the country means the development of the country. Happiness at the level of the earth means peace. When there is happiness, a person lives well. I'm now telling you what the mind is, or the subtle body of the mind. The subtle body of the mind is a mental structure that controls the entire body and regulates our life. It fills the physical body and subtle energy body with happiness, with the energy of happiness. One needs a good job, good food, a good spouse, good children. That means happiness. And this is what a person lives for. Otherwise, diseases and suffering enter the physical body and subtle energy body. Nobody wants to suffer. Everything you need for happiness, a job you love, a wife you love, children, friends. This is what fills the mind with happiness. So there is the mind which consists of thoughts, memory, and senses. There are senses. The eyes are sense organs. And the sense organs also have the sense of sight itself. The sense of sight does not die with the death of the physical body. And the human mind does not die either. The subtle energy body remains with the person, which is why there is such a concept as spirits. Spirits are those who live in the subtle energy body. Why does a person go insane? Because their subtle energy body weakens and another life enters it. And the person starts speaking in a different voice, not their own. This means that there are forms of life that do not have a physical body. They use someone else's physical body for their existence. This is a different topic altogether. You see, there is a subtle energy body. You, for example, might say, Dr. Torsunov, where did you get this from? You can't touch it or measure it with instruments. I can't touch it, but I have an entire clinic that diagnoses up to 30 parameters of this subtle energy body. If we make a mistake in something, then it doesn't help the person. We correct it and then it helps. That means that there is a science to it. It is possible to heal a person simply by influencing the subtle energy body. We treat a person more deeply because the physical body suffers from incorrect settings in the subtle energy body. The subtle energy body regulates the physical body, and in the subtle energy body lies love, attraction to each other, and a person's fate. A person's character is also located there. Their life is located there. This is the subtle energy body. And when a person begins to feel it, then they strive for power, success, money, and harmony in their close relationship. Harmony means that we have mutual understanding, that we feel each other better. This still doesn't help people stay together because this philosophy of passion or philosophy of subtle perception of the world creates a gap when difficulties arise in life. When difficulties arise in life, a person who is attuned to subtle perception of the world, attuned to passion, is not capable of overcoming these difficulties because one cannot humble oneself before fate. One doesn't want to suffer, doesn't want to be weak, doesn't want to humble oneself, doesn't want to forgive. One doesn't want to forgive. One wants only to overcome one's fate. And that's it. Because when a person forgives, asks for forgiveness, and accepts fate, this is already a spiritual platform. There is no egoism here, and without this it is impossible to preserve a family. Therefore, in order to stay together, a person needs to develop as an individual. One needs to learn to understand the world more deeply. You need to understand that this life is not all there is, that there will be a next one. You cannot live thinking only about this life, seeing nothing else. One must also love one's future. A person's future depends on the actions they have committed in this life. If a person doesn't purify their actions through repentance, they cannot have a good future. In other words, when a person lives on the platform of subtle perception of the world, they have more happiness in life. This is true. One can be developed and successful in life. Without subtle perception, it's impossible for a person to do business. Business laws won't help you. In order to do business well, you need to see whether a person is deceiving you or not. If you don't see this, how will you make a deal with them? You need to see the qualities of the person you're hiring, because later they'll start doing such things there that you'll be in shock. If you don't see people's qualities, you won't be able to be successful, because a person's success depends on who surrounds them. I'm telling you now that without a deeper perception of the world, even a passionate person cannot be happy. A person still needs some reserve of something that saves them in life. What do you think saves us? How can a person sense deception? What kind of power is this? Why does one feel this? Why does one sense a person's character? For example, why does a person get married and have good compatibility? Why does he find a wife who suits him and not one who torments him later? What is this? What are these qualities of a person that enable them to avoid these difficulties? Know that all these qualities arise only from one way of acting. This method of action is described in ancient culture in all spiritual traditions. There are three things that give a person the opportunity to be happy in this world. The first thing is the activity of the soul, unconscious activity of the soul. This is already a spiritual platform. This is a life of pure goodness, not a life of passion. So listen, the first thing is called austerity practice. For example, a person is fasting. What happens at this time? When a person fasts, the subtle energy body becomes tense and cleanses itself. Since the subtle energy body is connected to our life, the subtle energy channels of a person connect us with our children, with our wife, with our work, with everything that surrounds us. And if a crack appears somewhere out there, then a crack will also appear inside. But when a person is simply fasting, they purify everything around them and protect their life from cracks. It becomes easier for their spouse, it becomes easier at work. One defeats everything connected to one's life simply through austerity practice or the energy of patience. And this activity accumulates a certain power within a person, which is called devoutness. This power of devoutness gives a person abilities to see the flaws of others, to be able to forgive, to be able to endure, to be able to conduct yourself properly so that you are respected, and so on. This all means devoutness. When a person performed many austerity practices in their past life, they are born into a devout family in their next life. That means that one is given a good upbringing. One is already educated from childhood. In other words, a person's beauty, education, power, and influence, all of this is the result of their devoutness. Their memory, ability to remember languages, laws, and so on, all of this is the result of devoutness from their past life. Devoutness means overcoming oneself. Selfless activity not aimed at satisfying oneself. Well, who would want to not eat? Who likes not eating? Everyone only likes to eat. The question is how much. Some people tell me they don't like to eat. That means that you eat little, but that still means that you eat. Not eating is not enjoyable. When a person is hungry, they want to eat. When a person voluntarily doesn't eat and at the same time rejoices in this state, this is called austerity practice in pure goodness. If one gets angry about this state, it means this austerity practice is in passion. And if one doesn't eat because there's nothing to eat, this is austerity practice in degradation. But a person who has no opportunity to eat can still rejoice in this. This will be austerity practice in pure goodness. But this is already a high level of personal development. This is already a spiritual platform. A spiritual person cannot be broken by anything at all. The next type of activity that defeats bad fate is called sacrifice. Let's say a person walks around and repeats, I wish everyone happiness. I wish everyone happiness. I forgive you, I forgive you. Please forgive me. One sacrifices oneself at that time. Let's say one of you now stands up and says, Dr. Torsunov, do you yourself follow what you're saying? I say, but I'm a good person. I can humbly accept this person's instructions or I can resist. And the ability to perceive humbly, this ability is born from simply freedom of choice. That means that at this moment I need to try hard rather than enjoy. I came here to experience happiness in this hall. But perhaps I am not meant to be happy here today, and they will torment me with instructions. I won't be the one tormenting everyone with instructions. You will torment me with instructions. That means that you are performing an austerity practice right now. Listening is an austerity practice. When a person performs austerity practices, this activity brings them a faster victory. When a person performs austerity practice, they gain the strength to climb the mountain, so to speak. They gain more strength to live with the fate they have. For example, fasting helps endure your spouse who has already gotten on your nerves. You want to leave them, but after fasting, it becomes easier for you to tolerate them. You see, this is also important, to endure a close person. There is also sacrifice. When a person wishes everyone happiness, gives food to the poor, feeds pigeons, feeds cats, the old lady neighbor, depending on a person's nature, they should perform austerity practices according to their nature. For example, a man should give way to women, help an old lady cross the street. Male austerity practices include protecting a woman from attack. That means that he should care for people in accordance with male nature. Austerity practices in pure goodness are directed not at one's own happiness, but at the happiness of others. When a person performs voluntary austerity practices, they are able to cross over the mountain. When a person makes sacrifices in pure goodness, sacrifices something in their life, then in this case they reduce the mountain. For example, if I am destined in life not to eat, but if I feed people, then at the moment when I have no food, I too will be fed. Or for example, if I heal people, then at the moment when I fall ill, a doctor will be found who will cure me. You see what I'm talking about? Well, that means that when a person makes sacrifices, they become protected by fate. That means that one becomes fortunate in life. This type of devoutness comes to a person's heart as a result of their past life. That means that one made donations in the past, and in this life one becomes fortunate. Everyone's in crisis, but I'm doing fine at work. This means good luck, and a person must make charitable donations for this to happen. Try to understand this. Next, the following method of overcoming one's fate, and even more difficult to understand. If fasting and enduring are understandable, then how to forgive is completely unclear. Many people don't know how to forgive. I forgive, but I can't forgive. We'll talk about this. I will tell you how to forgive. The third method of defeating bad fate is a completely incomprehensible thing. This method is called ritual. The word rita, a Sanskrit word, means the universal rhythm of happiness, or the rhythm that brings victory, a sense of victory. For example, sometimes an army develops a feeling of victory and then it wins. Even soldiers die in a good state of mind, feeling uplifted. I'm telling you seriously. I'm not joking. This feeling of victory doesn't necessarily have to be only for the army. This feeling of victory also arises in ordinary people if they get in tune with the rhythm that is connected with victory. And many people, in order to get in tune with this rhythm, spend a fairly large part of their lives. How does this happen? They get up early to attend a spiritual service. What happens during the service? During prayer, a person enters the universal rhythm of happiness or a state of purity and joy. A person enters this state of faith, purity, and joy. And then one lives the whole day in this state. Then the next morning one goes to the spiritual service again, connects again with purity, joy. That means that one connects with this universal force of purity. Soldiers who go into attack, they perform a ritual with sound. They shout some kind of battle cry connected to higher powers. Each person in their own culture, their own faith. Prayer is also a ritual that connects a person with purity. What does this type of activity give? Why does a person follow a daily routine? When a person gets up early in the morning, why do they do this? One gets up early because one knows that at this time one gets in tune with the rhythm, in harmony with the rhythm of life on earth. Because the life of the earth is arranged in such a way that at night the energy of the moon shines. The moon relaxes a person and gives them good sleep. This feeling of, I'm sleeping, I feel good, this feeling comes from the moon. When a person sleeps during the day, it's like a nightmare. Because the sun doesn't allow sleep, it invigorates. When morning comes, the birds start singing, everything starts moving, the wind starts blowing, and at night there is silence. Because the moon calms everything down. When the sun rises, the wind begins to blow, birds start singing, roosters crow. That means that subtle energy rises upward. When a person starts waking up early, they gain the strength to overcome their fate, because this strength depends on the morning sun. When the sun rises, a person develops optimism in life. In other words, if a person lives in depression, they simply need to start waking up early and that's it. And the depression goes away. Depression means waking up late. The sun has risen and I'm still lying in bed. When a person goes to bed late, they lose contact with the moon. As a result, their sleep becomes disrupted. One can't sleep normally, sleeps like a zombie. When a person eats most of their food at noon, the sun digests this food itself because the sun is fiery energy. The sun possesses subtle energy that affects digestion. When a person understands all this, they simply live as they should, and they get in tune with the earth. As a result, one needs to spend less energy on all the processes that occur in the body. Everything happens on its own. Digestion happens naturally, vigor comes naturally. Sleep comes naturally, calmness comes naturally. When a person lives against this rhythm, they force themselves to sleep during the day, force themselves not to sleep at night, force themselves to eat in the evening, and then they feel bad in the morning because there is no strength to digest what was eaten. The sun gives this power. Besides this day-night cycle, there are also other cycles in a person's life. For example, victory-defeat is one such cycle. When a person attends a spiritual service or prays in the morning, they set themselves up for victory. And if one is not set up for victory, then one will be set up for defeat. Because fate doesn't ask us, it accumulates difficulties in our psyche on its own. The Vedas explain that this life is not meant for happiness, my dears. It is intended for us to pass the exams and receive this happiness. Therefore, time always creates tests for a person as it progresses. There are two types of tests. One type of time acts on the physical body. It simply ages it. The older the body gets, the harder it is to maintain health in it. You need to work harder for your health and be wiser, live more correctly in order to be healthy. There is also the subtle energy body. With each unit of time in our life, more difficulties of a mental nature enter the subtle energy body. Everything is great for children, they feel good. Childhood is a carefree time. Even if a child gets sick, they still feel great. A child feels happiness within themselves because time in childhood does not push difficulties into a person's psyche. And since a child is felt as a soul, spiritual energy is felt emanating from them. Therefore, people love children more than anything in the world because a child radiates the soul. You see the soul in someone who is still little, but in an old person you can see the soul only when they have overcome their fate, when they have become a sage. Everyone wants to hug a child's body, but no one wants to hug an old lady. This is how time acts upon us, creating and increasing difficulties. If a person overcomes these difficulties, they receive happiness. And also happiness comes simply by itself throughout life. And most people are set up for this happiness to always come into their lives only by itself. This is how we communicate. Hello, how are you doing? Everything is good? Everything is fine. Well, good, thank God. We keep sleeping. The Vedas explain that when a person is set up for everything to be good, at that time the soul sleeps. It remains inactive because everything is already good. What is there to do? The soul acts when it forces itself to perform these three types of actions: austerity practice, sacrifice, and prayer or ritual. All the rest of the time it simply hopes for the best. Of course, there is activity for maintaining the body and our life, work, food, and everything else. This is also activity not connected with the soul. This is activity, this is action, but it has a subtle nature or a material nature. But only activity connected with the soul gives a person victory in life, true victory in everything. Do you want to forgive? The soul needs to become active, and then the power of forgiveness will come out of it. But for this to happen, you need to know the rule. The rule is that activity comes into the life of the soul only through someone. You need to have a relationship with someone whose soul is already active. If you don't have such a deep relationship with this person, then you won't be able to act in a way that makes your life victorious. This is especially relevant to here now in Kiev. Because time doesn't just move, it has different ways of moving. Time can move in such a way as to bring happiness, despite the fact that we age and have more difficulties in life. When time brings happiness, everything around develops, the country develops. This is how time works. It's not politicians, not state laws, but time that changes life. What are deep relationships? Only through sound can this be understood. I have one assistant. She works at Veda Radio, and she has a deep relationship with her mentor. And she wrote about this relationship in a song, because she writes songs. If you listen carefully to what she sings about, you will understand how to set oneself up for holiness, whether it be an icon, a person, a holy place, holy land, or a holy name. Everything that is connected with holiness should be perceived this way in life. And if this perception is not there, then one must strive for it with all one's heart, and this too will bring victory. This means a different kind of love that is rarely achievable in our modern life. But it is achievable to a person. You simply need to be in contact with those people who practice such a life. Then a certain feeling will come to a person that one can experience when thinking about a holy person. So where did we leave off? We were talking about time. Therefore, time can move in a way that improves happiness in life. And then we have no questions about our fate. Not a single question. Except for those who have already gained the right way of thinking as a result of past difficulties. But time also happens to move in such a way that it doesn't bring happiness. Despite the fact that it still moves toward difficulties, it can intensify this movement toward difficulties. And this intensification comes in several categories. The first intensification, difficulties arise at the level of just one person. And then this person goes through 4 stages of development of events. The first stage is called fear. A feeling appears in life that not everything is good in my life, that it has somehow become difficult to live. Antagonism towards fate emerges, or a feeling that fate is cracking. I want to live a certain way, but it's not working out. This is the second stage. The third stage is a conflict with one's fate. In other words, a person feels that they have a bad fate. A person doesn't believe in their fate. And the fourth stage is the destruction of life. And all of this is simply done by time. It can bring each of us to the fourth stage. Such a conflict can occur at the family level. The first feeling is fear that something is wrong with us. The next stage. My close person is somehow not right. I don't really trust them. Next, third stage. Time acts this way. It pushes us toward this. It's not that your close person is to blame. The third stage is confrontation. We hate each other. The fourth stage is the destruction of the family. If we look at the country level, the first stage is fear. Life became frightening. There is a feeling that there are good people who understand our country, and there are bad people who don't understand. This is how time works. It forces things to happen in such a way that there will definitely be bad people. The third stage is enmity. And the fourth stage is war. Now, what stage is your country at? You're saying on the fourth stage. No, you are mistaken. If you seriously feel your country in prayer, then your country was already at the level of war, and now it is at the third stage. It is coming out of war. That means that the impact of time is improving in your country. The relief came, it became easier, you see. And then it will get even easier, even easier. Now the question immediately arises, why did all of this happen? Why did tension in your country keep building up, then lots of people died, and now everything seems to be calming down? Why is this necessary? Why is life arranged in such a way that time does this? There is only one goal, for us to be closer to our soul and to God. It is precisely for this closeness to God, to oneself, to the soul, that human life was created. There is no other reason to live on this earth, and therefore such difficulties arise on this earth. What has just happened in your country is now beginning in Russia as well. Time is also intensifying, and Russia is now entering the third stage of this influence of time. Will there be a fourth? I don't know. Everything depends on how people there will behave. If they will be closer to God, they can overcome it with the help of love, because the energy of love, the power of love, reduces the influence of time. For example, if you learn to love correctly, you can save your family. Even though your family should already be at the fourth stage at this time, the family is preserved. Or you can save your own life, even though the illness is incurable, but you recover. You can save your country if its residents start praying more to God, thinking more about spirituality, and living more purely. Today at the airport, I was waiting for my suitcase and listening to a broadcast. And there the host said, well, what's the point of changing the parliament? Same people will come again and do the same thing. We need, he said, to make changes here. And he started talking about education. He began talking about the need to educate people to govern the country. I'll tell you a secret. There are 3 types of education. The first type of education is material. This is what he was talking about. The second type is moral education. Moral education means that people in power must have a conscience. This is moral education. And there is also spiritual education. It means that these people can gather together, pray, and through prayer eliminate the suffering of their country. Because spiritual activity is completely incomprehensible to an ordinary person? How can one eliminate a problem through prayer? Nobody understands. But when one starts doing this, one begins to feel that it works. At the third stage of time's influence, material activity comes to an end. It no longer helps. One woman came up to me, "Dr. Torsunov, what stage is my child's illness at right now?" I explained to her, if you treat the child yourself and they recover, that means it's at the first stage of time's influence. If you take the child to a doctor and the doctor cures them, then it's at the second stage. You couldn't do it yourself, but the doctor healed the child. That means the illness was at the second stage of influence. But if you went to a doctor, the doctor couldn't help, and you went to another doctor, they couldn't help you either. Then what should be done? People no longer know what to do then. And then prayer works. When a person is at the third stage, they should make donations if they don't know how to pray. They should perform various practices like cold water training, fasting, physical exercises. Force yourself to defeat your bad fate, at least through the movement of your body. The easiest thing is to start with austerity practice. For example, you simply start fasting, you don't eat, and that's it. And everything changes in life. This is true. I'm telling you for sure. I have one acquaintance. Unfortunately, he couldn't do everything right. He overdid it. There's nothing funny about it because this person passed away. He had stage 4 cancer, but he was doing the following healing practice. He fasted without drinking water for 1 day, then ate and drank for 1 day. Then he fasted completely for 2 days, then ate for 2 days. Then he fasted for 3 days, then ate for 3 days. Then he fasted completely for 2 days again, and so on. And that's how he lived. He followed this fasting routine. He didn't deviate from this routine. After 3 or 4 months, all the metastases dissolved, but the tumor remained only in the liver. And he decided to fast for 5 days. This was a mistake. I told him not to do that. I said, what you're already doing now is enough to defeat the illness. But he started a 5-day fast, and his body broke down, unable to withstand this burden. And to prevent the body from breaking down, you need to pray, you see? You need to feel your conscience. It will tell you, don't do this, don't go there. So, if a woman starts praying and she finds a doctor, understands how to cure her child, this means God helped. And there is also a 4th stage, when a woman begins to pray and understands, knows for certain, that her child must pass away, and this is good for this child, because it is not always good to remain in this life. Sometimes it is good to transition to another. But this is already transcendental knowledge. Without prayer, it is impossible to understand this. You cannot understand this if you do not pray. This is what I'm telling you right now. You cannot understand that sometimes it happens that a person must leave my family. My beloved husband with whom I live suddenly must leave according to fate, and I am at peace with this. But this can only be understood through prayer, because a person must always fight only for the preservation of life, for the preservation of family, for the preservation of country. This is the only thing worth living for. One should never live for destruction and betrayal. But sometimes it happens that God gives different knowledge in the heart. You see what I'm saying? Different knowledge. That things will be different and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you understand why it is so, then you will be happy. I'll give you an example. A man with an enlightened look approached me and asked me a very concise question, a sign of strong intelligence. He said to me, Dr. Torsunov, first I lost 1 child, then the 2nd, then the 3rd, then my wife. I have a question for you. Why did God give me such a life? If all these people were very elevated people, we practiced spiritual life together, we had a good family. Why is everything destroyed? It's not a simple question, do you agree? And there's no sign of a miracle. The miracle happened later when I told him that all these people are now experiencing tremendous happiness. They passed all the exams in their life, they live in the higher spheres. You see, there are higher spheres of life in this world, there are lower spheres, and there are middle ones. The middle ones are meant for taking exams, the lower ones for suffering if you lived incorrectly, and the higher ones for happiness. I explained to him that all these relatives of yours are now there, on the higher planes. Look at this yourself through your prayer, through your relationship with God, feel it. And you know, he rejoiced. He said, yes, I feel it, but I can't believe it. And he was so happy, he said, that's wonderful. Thank you for this news. I said, but you yourself know this news every day. He said, but it seems to me that it's dishonest to think that way. Why is it dishonest? If it's better for the person this way, what's the problem? You see, this is difficult knowledge. Now I'm talking about things that are difficult to understand. We're already discussing things that are hard to grasp. These are difficult to attain things that people don't talk about. This is the fourth stage of time's influence. Nobody talks about this. But this will definitely happen to each of us. It will definitely happen to each of us. And not just once. And relatives will pass away, and I will pass away inevitably. But when a person passes away thinking of God, they do not return to this world. Suffering will no longer touch them. If they pass all their exams, I have witnessed such deaths. I saw when a person passed away right before my eyes, I saw it. His face was radiant at this moment. A smile remained on his face, and he passed away with prayer. His body was fragrant. It didn't smell foul. It was an amazing passing. This happens very rarely. But when a person lives a righteous life, they earn the merit of such a departure from this life. And bliss emanates from them at that moment, not suffering. And this is what a person lives on this earth for, only for this. But this doesn't mean that everyone should practice abstention and go to a monastery. A person should live according to their level of development. A person should live according to whatever stage of development they are at. So we've talked a little bit about what's happening. And now we will talk about our life specifically. It means that we have examined 4 stages of how events unfold. How can these events in the country affect the character of my loved one? Here's what you need to understand. There is personal fate, there is the fate of the family, and there is the fate of the country. We are now examining the interaction of these fates. Now look, let's say the country is at the 3rd stage of difficulties. How can you determine this? At which stage? By the state of people's consciousness. If the country is at the 1st stage of difficulties, people are a bit discouraged. They walk around and are afraid of something. People go out less in the evenings and at night, and dogs bark more on the streets. That means that fear appears. In the 2nd stage, when the country is living through it, trade restrictions appear. That means that the country begins to experience difficulties in relationships with other countries because doors are closing. Doors close in different directions because mutual rejection sets in. This is how fate begins to act. And at the 3rd stage, when the country is in it, then hostility arises. Enemies appear in our lives. And how do people look during this time? They are dejected because when time forces you to be hostile towards someone, there is absolutely no happiness from it at all. And therefore people's mood is one of despondency and difficulty, a feeling of heaviness. When I came to give lectures in Kiev, which was at the 4th stage, I saw devastation in people's consciousness. People just looked at me with such a petrified gaze. Now I simply see pain, resentment, suffering, and sadness. The atmosphere is like that, you see. This means the 3rd stage. This has nothing to do with you. I am now talking about the impact of time. I'm not saying that you are people who are sad by nature, suffering. No, this is not the case at all. On the contrary, the people in Ukraine are beautiful, kind, and generous. I'm being serious. What's funny about that? This is true. I have never been given more flowers anywhere than in Kiev. This is true. But time spares no one, you see. It educates everyone, both the good and the bad. The good ones first and foremost. If the country is in such a situation, will this impact my personal life? It will impact, undoubtedly. Know that if the country is at this 3rd stage of time's influence, you have no right not to pray in your family. You have no right, because if you don't do this, your family will definitely fall apart. Because when life becomes difficult in a country, people become dejected. And when despondency enters close relationships, then 2 people begin to identify their close person with the country's problems. I'll explain now. Let's say, for example, a close person has lost their job. This is the influence of the country's energy. When life in the country becomes harder, there are fewer employed people and more unemployed. You see what I'm talking about or not? It's not that the person is bad, which is why they're not working. They're simply weaker than those who are working. They are a bit less virtuous, and they lose their job. Or their bad period in life coincides with the country's bad period. And what happens at this time? If a person is not on a spiritual platform, they see before them a loser who cannot please them with warm words at this time because life is hard for them. When a person loses a good job, a good income, they enter a state of poverty, their health collapses, their mood collapses, their character collapses. One becomes more aggressive, malicious, snaps more, gets angry, cries, and so on. You see? A real situation arises in which it's impossible to live. And this always happens to everyone. Therefore, the only way in this situation is to solve this problem through a relationship with purity, with that force from which light emanates. I was given a gift of Saint Matrona. The word saint means light. And that's why a halo is drawn above the head. This is not an imaginary thing, this is a real thing. In different cultures and spiritual traditions, there are people who are connected to God like a light bulb plugged into an electrical source. There is light around the saint. This means that the darkness of degradation and a bad, difficult life dissipates. The fourth stage is the darkness of life. War is the darkness of life. There is nothing good there. And the third stage, and when there is anger and hatred, is like twilight. In the twilight, a person's consciousness is confused. They cannot see clearly. In order to see clearly, one must shine from within. It means to be a protection from misfortune, to serve such people in your heart, to become the wind, singing prayers, to read spiritual books with joy in your heart, to serve holy people. In other words, when everything is completely bad in life, a person must stop waiting for when everything will be good in our country. When it happens, it happens. What's the point of thinking about it? You need to think about being happy now. Why did life give us this time? Why? After all, this is very important, you see? If you miss this time, you will miss something that you will never be able to do later. It is right now that a person must learn to pray, not later. Because when things are bad, people pray naturally, but later, when things are good, you can't make yourself pray. This is exactly what needs to be done right now. One needs to think about holy people. You need to study your life and your faith through prayer. It is right now that you need to make sure your close one calms down, because you are creating a spiritual atmosphere in your home. A man calms a woman with his prayer, with his inner effort. A woman calms a man by creating an atmosphere. There are different ways of spiritual life. A man's spiritual life means immersion and austerity practice. And a woman's spiritual life means creating conditions. Why do women worry so much about having an altar in the house, about having icons hanging around? So that food is prepared with prayer, so that it is blessed on the altar? Why do women like doing this? Because this is how a woman engages in spiritual practice. This is her nature. She cleanses everything around her, and a man must cleanse everything inside. But when a woman cleanses everything around her, she also cleanses everything inside at the same time. She says, stop living like a pig. Get up earlier, go to bed earlier. She herself can sleep a little longer at the same time, but the husband must do everything right. This is how a woman is designed. She cares about the spiritual happiness of her loved ones. Am I saying everything correctly, ladies? I'm talking about my wife. Times when I'm hungry, I come into the kitchen. I'm thinking, when will she cook it? She does everything a bit slower than one would like, because the female nature is slower than the male nature. But that's because she is more thorough. Everything must be done beautifully and correctly. It takes time. When I come into the kitchen, she says, why have you come? I'm cooking for God. Go, she says, mind your own business. When the time comes, you'll eat. Food must be pure. This means that no one should look at it with a greedy gaze. She cooks for God in order to feed her husband pure food, you see. This is the philosophy of spiritual purity that a woman should have. If a husband becomes friends with some girl, no sex, they're just friends. She should reject this girl using her power of relationships. A woman is strong in relationships. She should find a friend who would give her the right advice and be close to her. She will find that girl's contact information. She will come to her and say, don't be friends with my husband. You can't be friends with him. He has a wife. And that's it. The girl will come to her senses and will stop doing that. You see? There is a feminine activity that purifies the atmosphere. A woman cleanses everything around her, which is why she attends spiritual services, so that everything in life is right and good. Men are not inclined to attend spiritual services. A man's transformation comes from within. That means that he defeats bad fate through his inner life. while a woman does so through her outer life. A woman attends spiritual services. She dresses properly. It's important for her to look proper. It's important to cook properly, to keep the apartment clean, to have icons hanging everywhere, and to have spiritual music playing. She creates the right, pure atmosphere that awakens the soul in the heart and defeats bad fate. This is how a woman acts in her home. A man sits down in the mornings. He has a different action. He prays, defeats his fate from within. A woman should also pray, but if she doesn't create an atmosphere, then she won't be able to defeat bad fate through prayer. She needs everything around her to be clean and good. Now the question is, who should start first? Some say that the man should start because he is stronger. Some say that the woman should because she is purer. Whoever is able to starts first. In other words, whoever came to the lecture, if you feel that life is hard for you, you have a bad job, you have a bad salary, if you feel that you don't even have enough normal food, this means only one thing: you simply lack piety. Try to understand this. Piety is such an energy that brings a person good acquaintances in difficult times to get a good job, brings a person good relationships, brings a person the ability to eat simple food and enjoy it rather than only very refined restaurant food. Piety means the ability to live in a simple apartment and be happy with it without necessarily having a large one. Piety means being happy with your salary, means being able to trust your elders. For example, if a person loves people who are strong and senior, then they themselves become senior. For example, what is the fastest way to become rich? The Vedas describe the fastest way. To do this, you need to learn in prayer to see the qualities of people who govern society and to rejoice in these qualities. When a person is in a position of power, it means that they have certain qualities that make them that way. If a person rejoices in these qualities, does not envy a powerful person, does not envy their boss, does not get angry at them, does not envy their superiors, but helps them and rejoices in them, then such a person immediately stands out in the team. Immediately. And the senior person begins to develop this person, gives them the necessary education in order to place them above others, because there are very few loyal people in this world. When a person is capable of being loyal, or in other words, devoted, then in this case they easily achieve success in life even against the backdrop of general suffering. Only rebels always suffer. Did you hear me or not? This devotion is achieved through service to God. When a person serves God or prays, they gradually begin to see good qualities even in those people who have more bad ones. You may think it's unclear how one can love my boss. Dr. Torsunov is talking about some boss, but he hasn't seen ours. You see, when a person has power and strength, they always become corrupted by it. But when a person has power and strength, it means God gave them this not by chance, not for nothing, but because they have the corresponding qualities for it. And if you see these qualities, the other person will also understand that you see these qualities in them. I had such a case. One of my acquaintances held a very high position in society. He was a minister. And I communicated with him on the topic of personal development, had frequent conversations. I saw how he reacted to everything that was happening. One time I was sitting in his office and I saw his boss call him. He stood up and in his eyes appeared absolutely genuine devotion. He said, "Yes, I'm listening to you. It will be done. Thank you. Everything is clear." When he sat down, I said, "Where did you learn this?" I very rarely see such behavior in people. He said, "My parents instilled this in me since childhood. Such respect for elders. I have great respect for my father and my mother. When people come to see me, I immediately determine what kind of person they are. I don't even need to see their references. A person wants to get a certain position. They come to see me. After a couple of words, everything is clear. Letters of recommendation are not needed. You can simply tell by their behavior, by their faith, by how they treat you, what kind of assistant they will be. He immediately determines whether to hire them or not. Therefore, this person always has a very strong team, because he only chooses people who have already developed themselves. And in order to select them, you need to develop yourself first, because those who haven't developed themselves cannot see those who are developed. You see, there is an easy way to get rid of life's difficulties. But who among you will take this easy path? Who among you is really ready to see the good in your boss? This requires a great deal of effort. Who is ready? So that means you 5 people who raised your hands will develop. But there are other ways to live well. You just need to accept what you have. And that's it. You know, if you go back 200 years right here in Kiev, you won't believe it, I'll tell you honestly, people mainly lived in small wooden houses or maybe even clay ones with an area of 30 to 40 square meters at most. They lived in large families in these 30 to 40 square meters with 10 to 15 people per family. They were happy that they had this housing. And it was enough for them because that was the culture around them. Everyone lived that way, and people understood that this was how one should live. They didn't have any other needs. But when people understand that they need to live differently, it all happens at the level of consciousness, and then pain arises. Why don't I have this? How much space do you need to sleep? Not that much. But this means years of hard work. This means working without rest, or be happy with what you have. Two options to choose from. But when a person is content with what they have, they just as easily obtain what they don't have. I'm explaining the secret of secrets. Now you will hear how one can earn money, how Rockefeller made his money. The secret of secrets. Listen, half of you won't hear this. A person should live modestly. This is the first rule. The second rule is to never borrow money. Because when you borrow money, you always pay back twice as much. And more than that, you're paying back your own money. You're borrowing someone else's money, great. You have to pay back with your own money. It hurts. When a person takes out a mortgage, they end up paying back 2 to 3 times more later. You see? What for? You could have earned all of that yourself. You just need to be patient for a little while. When you are content with what you have, you know how to endure. You just gradually save and gradually accumulate. When the time comes, you increase your living space by as much as you have saved up. And to save properly, you need to invest your money somewhere so it doesn't lose value. Money itself just melts away. That means that you need to look into how to do this right. You see? Little by little, bit by bit, a person accumulates money quite quickly. If they live modestly, when the time comes, their living space increases and so on. But many of you didn't hear what I just said. You have a different way of thinking. You say, no, Dr. Torsunov, to develop a business, you need to take out a large loan. If you're lucky, then you'll immediately get a big profit. Why suffer? Let me explain. The answer is as follows. To develop one's business and wealth, a person must have 2 things. The first thing is a character befitting a leader. And the second thing is people who are attracted by this character. And when you have loyal people who can be good specialists and good character that can retain these people, then you will become wealthy. But if you take the money and you won't have the people or the character, all that money will turn you into a slave. If you don't end up in prison anyway, you won't get off easy. Therefore, there is only one way to be happy. This is a life of pure goodness. There is no other way. If a person starts working on themselves, they better see the shortcomings of others, communicate better, behave better, and rise in their social status. Their life changes on its own, naturally. The opportunity arises to preserve the family, raise one's children, improve one's life situation, and become healthy. Because people in passion suffer from inflammatory diseases due to eating too spicy, too salty, too fried food, because they use food to relieve tension. Moreover, people in passion relieve tension through smoking and alcohol, which also destroys a different type of health that one needs to know about. Besides the mind, a person also has intelligence. Intelligence is a tool for controlling one's fate and defeating it. It's what stands above the mind. Intelligence is woven from willpower, faith, determination, enthusiasm, and a sense of purity. Intelligence is woven from knowledge, true knowledge, which gives inspiration. Sometimes a person reads something and says, I know everything, smoking is harmful, but at the same time smokes. This means that knowledge is not in their intelligence, it's only in their mind. When knowledge comes to intelligence, inspiration to quit this habit appears. Knowledge gives rise to such inspiration. Knowledge is a function of intelligence. So a person has intelligence. When a person drinks alcohol, their intelligence weakens. When a person smokes, their intelligence weakens. When a person cheats, their intelligence weakens. When a person overeats before going to bed and wakes up late, intelligence weakens. When a person is sad, suffers, or grieves, intelligence weakens. When a person gets angry, their intelligence is lost. When a person hates someone, intelligence is lost. When a person curses, intelligence is lost. When a person insults their elders, intelligence is lost. When a person lives in revenge, intelligence is lost. When a person lives in envy, intelligence is lost. When a person lives in laziness, intelligence is lost. When a person lives in greed and thinks about their dream, intelligence is lost. The 6 enemies of a person that destroy intelligence. The first enemy is lust. It means desiring someone other than your own wife or your own husband. The second enemy is greed. It means wanting more than what is meant for you in life. The first enemy, lust, destroys a person's family happiness. The second enemy, greed, destroys peace. A person has to work a lot because they want more than they should have. You have to rush around doing something. 3 jobs, 4 jobs, 5 jobs. The third enemy is anger. Anger destroys good memories of people. Raise your hand if there are people in your life who have nothing good about them. There's nothing good about them at all. If you have such people in your life, it means you got angry at them. Anger destroys good memories and therefore relationships. What is the most important thing in a person's life? Relationships with people. Anger destroys these relationships. Especially anger towards elders destroys a person's faith. If a person gets angry at their elders with whom they share their spiritual life, then their faith is destroyed. The path to God is closed. That's it. It only comes through elders. The path to God goes through seeing purity in one's elders. The fourth enemy of a person is illusion. Illusion is what is propagated by the mass media. Do you want to live in a nice apartment? Then live in it. Do you want to get a good car? Get it. This is an illusion, or this is a more subtle form of illusion. People say, well, if there hadn't been a crisis, then I would have paid off the mortgage. What are you talking about, Dr. Torsunov? You should understand that in this world there is no life without crises. A crisis is simply the normal course of time. You, for example, say, if there hadn't been a high wave, I wouldn't have been washed away. Well, high waves are something that is always inherent to the sea. Sometimes the wave is calm, sometimes it's high. The sea is not always calm. Time works in exactly the same way. Sometimes there's a crisis and sometimes there isn't. And in a crisis, banks win while people lose. That's how the mortgage system works. Illusion means casinos. Illusion means computer games. And life's time keeps passing. Whatever a person engages in, that is what they become. The Vedas explain that the subtle energy body is also called the body of desires. Depending on what desires a person experiences in their life, that is the body they will receive in their next life. I won't continue with this topic any further. This information is difficult to understand. I won't go into detail, but analogies do exist. There are people who become like pigs. There are people who become like goats. Some people become as stubborn as a donkey. Why do people call each other animal names? The fates of animals are similar to those of people. Think about this, reflect on it. This is transcendental knowledge, already difficult to understand. One shouldn't talk much about this. Doubts immediately arise about the lecturer's appropriateness. I once participated in a TV show about vegetarianism. And the host said to me, Dr. Torsunov, say anything you want, but not a word about lard, not a single word about lard. He said it honestly. This is the energy of the planet Venus. The planet Venus is connected with people's devoutness and purity. Yes, people love cleanliness, order. They are beautiful by nature. They are a little bit plump. It means kindness, love, compassion, human consciousness. The connection between planets and our lives is a different topic. There is a lot of this energy in Ukraine. People are good-natured, soft-hearted, beautiful. The fifth enemy is even worse. It is envy. When you sometimes walk past a bench where people of a special life form are sitting. This special life form is called old grumpy ladies. And you'll learn everything about yourself. What kind of glasses you're wearing, what kind of nose you have, a bald spot there, what you look like, and so on. And what would happen to you and what wouldn't happen to you. This means envy. Envy destroys a person's life. When a person envies someone, it means they will never have that in their life. One could say that envy is a curse in itself. If you envy someone, it means you will never become like them. And the opposite of envy is doing something good for this person. If someone is better than you, help them, and then you will become like them. All these 5 come of the person's own free will. And the 6th one is punishment, called insanity. When a person is born mentally ill or becomes mentally ill, or when life turns out in such a way that they lose their intelligence, this means that the sixth enemy has entered their life. This is very harsh, a harsh fate. Notice that all these enemies are also divided into stages. The most common enemy of a person is lust. We experience it every day. If a person becomes immersed in greed, they can no longer lead a normal life. This life becomes harder. All the beggars on the roads, on the streets, the panhandlers, they are all afflicted by this enemy. Think about it. Why do they beg so desperately? The third enemy is anger, the transition from the second to the third stage. Time causes anger in people's hearts when it becomes unfavorable for their lives. Illusion can lead to death. Being in illusion, people can live in places where there is shooting, thinking that nothing will happen to them. Envy leads to the fourth stage. A person wants to be cursed, curses themselves when they envy others. And when a person ends up in a psychiatric hospital, there are no more comments to be made. Life ends at this point. Or by the Lord's mercy it can continue, because a psychiatric illness can only be cured by prayer. There are no other ways. So, we are talking about the influence of fate, the impact of events on our family, on our life, on our close relationship. Now the situation. I have exactly this situation where my close person has stopped loving me because everything around us is going badly. Raise your hand if you have this situation. Not that many. Good. And who did you yourself stop loving? Because everything is bad? Maybe this isn't a relevant topic. I'm simply talking about the passage of time. Things will get better in your country, but not as quickly as one would like, slowly, gradually. Do you know when there will be clear signs of improvement in your life in the economic aspect? I can tell you what they are. 2 criteria for improving the economy and stabilizing life in the country. 2 criteria. The first criterion. People will get tired of criticizing the government. The second criterion. The authorities will get tired of stealing. When you see that people have grown tired of changing the government, fighting, making revolutions, people got tired of doing this, and the leaders began to care about people. Simply do their job, fulfill their duties, their function. From this moment, the economy will begin to improve. And these 2 moments depend on only one factor: the extent to which God is present in your own heart. Because according to the Vedas, it is enough for 1% of the population to improve their spirituality, and the entire economic situation of the country will stabilize. 1% of the population improves their relationship with God, and the entire country prospers. Do you grasp this proportionality? For a country to degrade, the majority of people must live incorrectly. And for a country to develop, only 1% of people need to start living correctly. That's the proportion. And this percentage is you, those who came to this lecture. Don't think that someone else should be this percentage. This is you who must learn to love your elders. This is you who must learn to love holiness. Because if you don't love your elders, how will you love God? He is even more senior. And by the way, He does far more things that we don't like. The Lord can take away life, can put someone in prison, and so on. This all happens by the will of God. Let's curse at Him too. He will start a revolution there too? No? There is a spiritual world. There is no suffering there. That's where God resides. A person's consciousness can be above the division into nations. Love unites, removes boundaries. A person may not feel belonging to any particular nation. One can feel that one belongs to a certain culture. Pure consciousness means that a person respects the quality of one's character, not their national identity or their faith. Look, there are 3 types of attitudes toward faith. The first, fanatical faith, means people of our faith are good, everyone else sucks. Fanatical faith breeds hatred between faiths. And ultimately what we see now is the killing of those who are of a different faith. You see, this is also the impact of time on faith already taking place. More spiritually developed believers see faith in a person, not their religious affiliation. In other words, they see in a person their relationship with God. I'll give you an example. I had a meeting with Muslims who listened to my lectures. They hold high positions. They are Muslim spiritual teachers. And we talked with them about God. I then went to the service that one of them was conducting in his mosque. You see, we were talking with them about a person's spirituality. But I am not a Muslim, and they treated me kindly, with love. And I feel the same way about them. I have no grievances against people of other faiths. Not because a brick fell on my head and I became enlightened, but because I understood that in every faith there are people who have a relationship with God, and there are people who strive toward it. The person who has a relationship with God begins to feel God in other people. That means they feel the faith in a person, not their affiliation with a particular religion. Do you understand what I'm talking about right now or not? One begins to feel God in a person, God's presence. This means that one begins to feel a person's faith, their love for God, rather than their affiliation with a particular religion. And this removes the boundaries between religions. This doesn't mean that you can be in 10 religions at once. No, you remain in your own, but at the same time, you love everyone who prays to God in different spiritual traditions. This is the second level of a person's development in faith. The second level, you see, there is also a third one. When a person begins to see the soul, even in animals, in plants, they see the presence of God everywhere in this life, and they shine everywhere and always. They have no contradictions, no duality. They don't divide the world into friends and enemies. Even in the most hardened criminal who is steeped in blood, such a person sees purity and soul. But at the second stage, a person cannot see purity in a criminal. One only sees purity in pure people. And at the first stage, a person sees purity only in God and in their elders, but nowhere else. Feel the difference or not? It's simply personal development. When a person has no faith, they cannot separate themselves from their nation, from their family, from their children, from their people, and therefore one lives in conflict with everything that happens in this world. I'm not saying that you shouldn't defend your motherland, you see? I'm not talking about that. Quite the opposite. For example, according to the Vedas, a country that strengthens itself, makes itself strong, increases security in this world more than one that makes itself weak. Because it is precisely when a country becomes weak that wars break out. Therefore, the country and the people, all the inhabitants of the country, must make the country strong. It means a strong government, strong relationships, faith in one's people. It means faith in one's culture. It means power. A powerful state means strong relationships and a strong spirit. And then peace comes. No one will attack such a country. How can anyone attack it? You see what I'm talking about? This does not contradict spiritual knowledge. The structure of society itself does not contradict, but on the contrary, flows from such knowledge. But faith in one's country stands below faith in God. And when people believe in God, on the one hand, they want their country to be strong, and on the other hand, they sincerely love all people on earth, regardless of which country they live in, especially if these people themselves build a relationship with God. What I just said now causes contradictions in the minds of some people. How can all of this be reconciled? It can be reconciled if you want to develop as a person. So is this topic not relevant to you? Isn't it relevant that the difficulties of life in the country are destroying the family? Is this topic not relevant? If it's relevant, ask your question, because no one raised their hand. If you have this situation, ask your question. If not, we'll talk about something else. Why waste time for no reason? Okay, go ahead and ask.
A question about family.
Oh, great. Excellent. Look, if some relatives live in Russia and others in Ukraine, and the Russians criticize the Ukrainian government while the Ukrainians criticize the Russian one, right? Right?
Yes.
Listen carefully to what you should do. You need to understand that this consciousness is natural for a person because the influence of time exists between two countries. For example, who has lost their warm feelings toward their husband right now? There's no love. There is no love for a close person. This is the influence of time. All of you who raised your hands should now understand several things, at least theoretically. The first thing to know is that this won't last forever because time will change, and the warmth toward your loved one that was there before will return again. This is the first thing you need to know because those people who have experienced this think that it will always be this way now. Time messes with your mind. It makes you think that way. When a person lives in poverty, they think, well, that's it. Now it will always be like this. Or when they're sick, they think they'll be sick for life. You see, that's how time works. People don't see the cycles. When a person is suffering because of some difficulty, they don't see the cycles of time's influence. The first thing you need to know is that this won't last forever. For example, you still have 6 more months of difficulties and then things will improve in your fate. Who else raised their hand? Yes, no matter what happens, things will get better for you anyway. This is how time works. You're already getting over it. You already feel the relationship better. Your heart is already warming up toward them. Is that right or not?
Yes.
Everything is already getting better, but you're living in the past. Next, who raised their hand?
It's not about my husband.
So who is it about?
A close person.
That's interesting. What do you mean by a close person?
Mom.
Oh, your mom? I understand. Yes, your mom, right?
Yes, how long will it last with my mom?
All the bad things have already passed for you. You're living in the past. You can already fix the relationship. The time has already warmed up. Okay, that's it. I'm just giving these examples so that you can see that there are cycles. I'm not going to explain to each of you individually what's going on in your particular situation. I want to continue the lecture. Therefore, the knowledge that time acts cyclically immediately makes life easier. You just need to learn to wait. You need to be calm and persistent in order to occasionally receive life's meager telegrams of joy. Well, that means that you simply need to believe that this time will pass. The next thing you need to know is the second point. If you set yourself up for the image of a holy person or the scriptures and begin to pray, the first thing that will happen is that God's grace will descend upon your heart. When it comes to you, then you will have an inner ability, which you don't have now, to truly wish happiness to a person who doesn't evoke a response in your heart. That means that your heart will naturally start to turn toward them. From this moment on, you will begin to defeat your bad fate. Despite the fact that coldness comes from your close person and they behave badly, you will begin to relate to them correctly, which doesn't mean humbling yourself, but rather means relating to them with a sense of self-esteem, with love and strength. They will start coming to their senses, and their conscience will awaken immediately, because a close person always torments another one only according to their fate. And if you start to overcome your fate with the help of holiness, then they will no longer be able to torment you. I'm telling you this having experienced it in my own life, and therefore I have no doubt that the same will happen to you. So the third stage, after prayer. When you start learning, you will be able to think better of your close person during prayer. Then gradually and slowly you will reach the moment when conscience will awaken in their life. You will see this with your own eyes. And then everything becomes simple. Simply keep doing the same thing, and they will start to change, and that's it. Now let's find out in the audience who has already done this. Who was able to turn their heart toward a close person, to think well of them? Raise your hand. Look at the audience. There are such people. Who has managed to reach the point where you felt that everything would be fine in your relationship with this person? Raise your hand. Okay. And who has now managed to awaken their conscience among those who are raising their hands? Already fewer. And who has seen changes in the consciousness of a close person? You see, there are such people. Many people in the hall are raising their hands. They have already done this in their lives. When a person has done this once in their life, it becomes easier for them to do it a second time. That means that we have just examined the stages of overcoming one's fate. Perhaps a more relevant topic, how to improve your own fate and your family's fate during difficult periods in the country's life. This is probably more relevant. How can events in general affect the character of a close person? I'll explain it to you. A person will get more tired if bad fate is in progress. A person will be more nervous, they will get sick more often. This is how the country affects a person. One will get more tired, more nervous, more sick, more sad, and more negative emotions and internal difficulties will be present in one's heart. And this is overcome by increasing the spiritual life of the family. It means three things: austerity practice, charity, and prayer. When you increase this, the country's impact begins to neutralize and disappear altogether. It may be that against the backdrop of a difficult situation in the country, everything in your family will be absolutely wonderful. With the help of daily efforts, you can overcome the impact of collective fate on your family. First, a person creates calmness within themselves. This is the first stage. The second stage, a person creates calmness within their family. And only the third stage concerns work. At the third stage, God gives to a person a good job against the backdrop of the country's devastation. Do you want a good job? Learn these three stages. The first stage, calmness within oneself. A person feels everything is fine in my life, but daily efforts are needed for this. Prayer, efforts in prayer. You don't understand what prayer is? Then make efforts in charity, efforts in austerity practice. I had a situation like that in my childhood. I just remembered it now. I had a difficult situation in my personal life. In my early childhood, at 12 years old, my father constantly drank and beat my mother. A very difficult situation in life. But naturally, this was given to me for my development. It's not that my parents were bad. I am very grateful to them for my development. Honestly, it's simply amazing how God helped me through all of this. Because when God gives you something that you can overcome, that is actually mercy. He strengthens a person. I tried everything I could to live a normal life. Nothing worked for me. I scolded my dad, I scolded my mom, I scolded everyone I could think of. Nothing changed, everything was bad. And then I started somehow intuitively, without understanding why I was doing it, to take cold showers. I just stood under a cold shower and felt better. I started running wearing only swimming trunks in winter, barefoot in the snow. Well, that means that I started training in the cold. This was the very first thing I realized that helped me. Then I started doing static exercises, sitting motionless in a certain position. Relief would come as well. Then I started fasting. Restricting myself in food also helped. That means that I started doing austerity practices. Then the time came, around the age of 23, when I had already emerged from under my parents' influence, and I broke through to the next stage of inner development. I began wishing everyone happiness in my heart, and then gathering people and wishing everyone happiness together with them all. This helped even more. When you do this, everything around you, the entire atmosphere is purified. And then my life began to change. It went upward, began to flow differently. Life began to flow differently. And at 28 years old, I started to pray. And then another new leap occurred in my development. A person does what they can. You see? Just start with what you can, and then everything will come with time. But if a person seeks happiness in external actions, there will be no development in life whatsoever. One needs to seek happiness in internal actions. For women, everything is a little different. For example, austerity practice for a woman is taking care of loved ones. Force yourself to care of your loved ones for the sake of God, not so that they would smile at you and love you. Simply do it for God's sake. This is a woman's austerity practice. Charity for a woman is caring for people in general, for society. Plant trees, feed the poor, feed the dogs and cats around you. And prayer for a woman is going to the temple. It is very difficult for a woman to concentrate on her own, but if she immerses herself in a prayerful atmosphere, it becomes very easy and good for her to develop spiritually there. Do you have any relevant questions about this lecture topic, not just about why something hurts somewhere, but about the lecture topic itself? If you have such questions, then ask them. Your question.
Dr. Torsunov, thank you very much. May the Lord bless your family. I have a question. What you said about the family. When the relationship with my husband is so bad that I would want to be with another person, how can I set myself up for this? I understand that I shouldn't do this. I need to stay in the family for the sake of the children, for the sake of my husband, and in order to fulfill God's will. How can I reset myself?
You need to find out who you really wanted to be with.
With another person.
No. Your dream resides in this other person, because this other person is the same as your husband, just from a slightly different angle. All men are the same, you see. A person's dream is not connected to another person. I fell deeply in love with a girl when I was a child. I constantly thought about her. And only later with age, in very deep prayer, I understood that what I loved in her was what I later saw in holy people. You see, what I loved in her was my relationship with God. You see, the closer a person is to God in life, the more they can love people. The more they see depth and purity in them, and the more strongly they fall in love, the closer they stand to God in their life. Because the very ability to fall in love already indicates a developed heart. But you know, being in love always means seeing God in a person, deifying a person. This happens due to ignorance. Right now, there is not enough knowledge in your heart to understand what this feeling is that you are experiencing toward this person. This feeling was a reflection of your faith that you had in a past life. I can see your faith now, and this faith had the same feeling, the same one that you just experienced in your relationship with that person, the same feeling, but toward the one who is the true possessor of this love. A person should direct this feeling where it should be directed, but you don't do it. You saw a mirage in the desert. But if you had seen the real person, then you would have felt reciprocity.
Something is holding me back. I don't understand what's happening.
This is from a lack of knowledge. You must understand that this very feeling that you experience toward this person, when you experience this exact feeling toward a holy person, toward human holiness, or toward God, reciprocity will come immediately. In this case, you will experience true love. Because true love has only a mutual nature. It is never unrequited. Unrequited love means it's a mistake. You made a mistake, you saw the wrong person.
Good evening, Dr. Torsunov. Please tell us, what is the difference between prayer and meditation?
Meditation is the activity of the mind. Prayer is the activity of intelligence. Let me explain. When a person meditates, what are they doing? They set themselves up for purity. There was this cartoon when I was a child. I don't remember the title. About an animal that was always listening to the forest. It listened to the forest, ran around and wanted to hear all the sounds. It didn't want to listen to the sounds of the machine. It only wanted to listen to the forest. And it would always freeze and listen to the forest. This is actually how deer behave. They meditate on the sound in the forest. And that's why hunters catch them using a horn. They create a sound, the deer runs toward that sound, and they kill it. Meditation means to merge with something pure, to become still. This is the activity of the mind. The mind freezes. Like when, for example, small children experience very strong happiness. Have you noticed? They just freeze like that. This is meditation. Do you understand what meditation is? Meditation is when you freeze. Meditation means connecting with the happiness that exists in this world, in nature. For example, a young man meditates on a girl. He looks at her and freezes. A girl meditates on how a young man looks at her, and she freezes. A person can meditate on the forest, on the river. You see, when a person practices meditation, they heal themselves and gain health. To practice meditation, you need to make contact with a person who already has this power. In order to love the forest, you need to feel this love from someone who has it. Meditation gives a person health. When a person sets oneself up for the energy of the forest, one is healed. When one tunes into the energy of water, one is healed. In the same way, you can meditate on a holy person. In the same way, you can meditate on the sun, on the earth. Each meditation provides its own fusion of the mind with its own element. Meditation on holiness means merging with holiness, immersion in an atmosphere of happiness. But when intelligence acts, it does completely different things. Intelligence doesn't merge with anything, it serves. The mind takes happiness and merges with it, but intelligence gives happiness. These are fundamentally different types of activities. And giving happiness means a higher activity than taking it. Even taking happiness is already good because we are simply like frozen. We can neither take nor give. We are not able to believe in the forest, in the birds, in the sun. We live with very limited consciousness, which is why we get sick. But when a person is capable of listening to the voice of a holy person, bowing to them and repeating, "I wish happiness to everyone. I want to serve the forces of light. I wish everyone happiness. I wish everyone happiness." Doing so, a person erases all their bad fate. One doesn't just set oneself up for the good. A person rises up against their bad fate and destroys it with this attitude. This is the activity of intelligence. Intelligence can defeat one's fate, not just accept the good from it. Do you understand the difference or not? Prayer stands above meditation. It's more sublime than meditation. Don't equate one with the other. Meditation is great, but prayer is more sublime. Meditation prepares one for prayer. You can set oneself up for water, for the sun, and then start to serve God.
I wanted to ask, where does indifference to life come from? Where does it come from?
Indifference to life comes from time. Time comes and it crushes you, you see. It comes only from time. This means that it affects your intelligence, preventing you from being enthusiastic. This doesn't mean that you should give in to it. You need to start thinking about a holy person, listening to the voice of such a person, repeating your prayer, bowing to a saint, and defeating indifference in your heart. When inspiration comes into your heart from the voice of a holy person, then your indifference will be destroyed. And the proof of what I'm telling you is that right now, with the help of my voice, I am removing it from your heart. You can feel it. Isn't that so?
That's right.
I am not trying to brainwash you. I simply know how prayer works. If a person has faith, it is transmitted to another. He asked me a question, and I conveyed to him what he wanted to know. Now the person feels better because he connected with what I have inside. And now we will all unite together. Now we will all do together what you need to do. This last part of our program is the best one. These 2.5 hours were preparation for what we will now practically do in 10 minutes. These 10 minutes, if you are seriously focused, will be more valuable to you than these 2 hours, 2.5. Now we need to verify this. We are now going to practice a universal principle. The universal principle of prayer is to listen and try with all your might to hear the one who is inspired. Now a very elevated person will sing. He will sing, "My Lord, I am already coming to you. I am coming to you, my Lord." He will sing in Hindi. And his mood will be of that love you were talking about. Precisely that burning love that a person waits for their whole life and for which they are ready to abandon even their loved ones. This love will already be directed toward God with the right attitude, with the right consciousness in this person. This person is extraordinary. He gathers huge crowds of people. They listen to him. People cry from happiness. Their lives change. And he doesn't give lectures. He simply sings about God, and that's it. And now we will listen to this person in this mood. But you don't need to change anything in your life while doing this. We repeat, I wish everyone happiness because it is acceptable to everyone, to all religions and cultures. And at the same time, we bow before holiness. We think about our mentor. We want to serve the faith that is in my heart, and we want to preserve it, keep it. We don't want to change anything. We listen to what will help everyone set themselves up for this together. Sometimes I play Muslim music, sometimes Orthodox, sometimes Vedic. It doesn't matter. What matters is that there is inspiration, that people become inspired. Please sit up straight and freeze. We will now all repeat together, I wish everyone happiness. And there will be 3 stages in your consciousness. The first stage is engagement. You need to strongly desire, want to hear the purity, strongly want it at the first stage. When you hear it, a little bit of inspiration will appear inside you. And this inspiration must be used to repeat, I wish everyone happiness. And when you feel the strength and joy inside, then remember your life, remember your fate, and defeat it with the help of this strength. But don't think about your fate at first. Think of it when the time comes.